meeting to order. First, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So for announcements tonight, I'd like to take a moment of silence. We lost a junior student, a member of the junior class. His name was Brendan Sherwood. Personally hit home for myself. I knew his mom and the dad since my inception in the PTA in 2008. A little bit about Brendan. He's currently a junior, as I said, class of 2023. He was a varsity skier and belonged to the Math Honor Society and the Tech Honor Society. He enjoyed being a member of the Scout Troop 4006. He was quiet, caring, and a helpful person who loved to bake for others. He loved to play Minecraft, Stratego, and laugh with his friends. Very tragic. So can we just have a moment of silence for him and his family? Thank you very much. Okay, so tonight, it is a public meeting. We are still under COVID restrictions, meaning that masks are still required in the buildings today. So if you are here, you still have to wear a mask, as we are wearing today. We are going to do public comments at the end of this meeting, because the majority of it is we wanted to have this meeting to talk about the plan as of tomorrow and going forward, the steps going forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I have to adopt an agenda. Can I do that first?
Yes.
Naomi's first, Todd a second, all in favor? Motion passes. Okay, so, and as when Dr. Robinson is through, I'd like to have a discussion around the board table. I would like to have some comments. I do have some questions that, we're gonna flush out because I'm seeing as recurring. And I hate to use the social media, but it seems to be a lot of the platform that people are using. I hate to say it, but that's where I'm going tonight. And I have a few letters that I am actually going to read open, and then go through some of their questions so everybody can hear what everybody's thinking. Okay? All right, Dr. Robinson?
So thank you very much, Mr. Stevenson, the board. I won't necessarily stand. The presentation is also being live streamed as we speak. So there are two different plans. They're related, but they're separate. So I'm going to walk through the mitigation plan and then show how the mitigation plan is embedded in the school reopening plan. So the first one I'll be doing is the mitigation plan. Before I go into it, I want to thank board members for taking the time to look at it from their respective lenses and contribute to the plan. So I think that was an important piece of it because, again, you represent various segments of the community at large and not only different perspective, but quite frankly, when you look at a document for the first time or different, it's always good to go through. So I'm not going to hit every word. Clearly, it's known now that the governor on this past Sunday announced the transition to mask optional, and subsequently on that Sunday afternoon, we actually issued a correspondence to all our staff and the community otherwise in terms of showing some of the next steps. And I think that's important, and we have been doing it all along, trying to provide people with information and a source of the actual information. And yes, while people often communicate on social media, oftentimes, and I would say oftentimes, it's not complete information. And so subsequently people get pieces of things, and so we want to make sure that information is there. After tonight, these documents will be posted on the COVID corner on the district website as well, so that information is always there, as well as the past plans, so people can always go back and look from whence we came. So that's, I want to emphasize that piece of it. The focus that we've had in the past in terms of prioritizing health and safety and supporting the social and emotional needs as well as providing educational and extracurricular, this continues to be our focus. That focus has never changed. never changed prior to COVID, hasn't changed during COVID, and it's not changing now as we pivot to a mask optional environment. So that's important. The second piece I also want to emphasize, this in the beginning of both plan documents, is the fact that it is a mask optional environment, and people should be, and it's expected that everyone is respectful of everyone else in terms of the choices that people make in terms of wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. And we've had that conversation with our administrators, and I know that that message is going out because I've seen many emails from administrators to their staff already to remind people of such. So I think that respect piece is an important piece of it. Another piece that's out there, and I've been checking, I was on a call this morning at 9 o'clock with several colleagues from across the state and the Commissioner of Health, Dr. Bassett, as well as a gentleman who represented the governor's office. And at that point, they thought they would have some updated guidance available by midday. As of 6:34, that wasn't available. However, what did come out about 4 o'clock today was some guidance related by the Office of Children and Family Services for pre-K school environments. And so that document was telling, because more than likely what comes out for K-12 is probably going to mirror a lot of that information. So I shared that with the board because the piece that was still outstanding that we didn't have confirmation on is information that's currently now, and certainly the board is familiar, and I think most of the public who had an interest, we created this flow chart. The information in this flow chart is still accurate right now as of today, and I anticipate even with the new guidance, this information is going to be still accurate. And the main part of that piece of the information that I think that we were all wondering is what happened after someone who's COVID positive returns to school after day 5. If there are no symptoms, all the things in the chart. I'm not going to repeat all the pieces in the chart. So the question is, does that continue? The answer to that is yes. That will continue with the day 6 to 10. Wearing a mask is required, and as the terms that were used in both calls and as well as in this OCF document, that ideally when people are not, such as Eden, not wearing a mask, be separated by 6 feet. So that's consistent with what was in the flow chart. So that's important. And even our document, we pretty much say the flow chart is still in effect. If or when the guidance document comes out, maybe tonight, tomorrow, and if there are any modifications to that, we'll modify the flow chart accordingly. So this flow chart, again, becomes the source document in terms of how we're looking at COVID cases as well as the isolation pieces as well. So that's an important piece because I think that's one of the questions I've heard from several individuals today, and I hesitated to send out the correspondence for that until I had more confirmation. But certainly the OCF document speaks to that, and I anticipate it's going to be the same thing for a K-12 environment. So that's an important point to make note of. As we look at some of the changes, probably the more significant change was the CDC changing in terms of the matrix, if you will, in terms of how they're looking at transmission rate. Community transmission is a term that the CDC uses. So Saratoga County Health Department also still in the process of updating their dashboard to align more to the CDC Matrix as well. And the CDC Matrix focuses primarily on 3 areas: hospitalization with COVID, hospital bed availability, and new COVID cases. So just to give you an example, just using some of and the reason why there's so many details that we don't want to have a plan to have all the details versus the link is on the document, so if people want to see all the details, they just simply access the link and you see all the graphs. Just to give you an example what you mean by hospitalization with COVID. So for high, which would be that red or orange area, so to speak, a high transmission rate is defined as 200 COVID-19 cases per 100,000. And so we're far from that. We're down into the single digits now in Saratoga County, just a point of reference. The second piece that talks about hospital bed availability, for high, at least 15% of staff in inpatient hospital beds occupied by COVID. That number is also, again, in the single percentage digits in Saratoga County, as of when I looked at the chart at 5:30 before leaving my office to come here. And then the hospital bed availability is, they look at the weekly average of at least 200 new cases of hospital admission per 100,000. Again, that number is also in the low single digits. So I share that just as a point of perspective, that this particular dashboard, that we have a link on our website. Saratoga County has a pretty extensive dashboard that gives that data, and it's updated. You go on, you can see that we're in green, which means low transmission rate. So this is included in our plan as a point of reference for people who want to know what the CDC recommendations are and how that's translated to what Saratoga County, and I would say probably most counties across the region. I could say certainly the 4 counties within this region are using the same thing, because I've been on call with all those representatives and they're all using similar dashboards and matrix. So that's important for looking at that piece of it. The one piece that I think everyone wants to emphasize again, that again, people choose to wear masks at any time. People with symptoms or positive exposure tests should wear masks if you are positive. And then immunocompromised, there's a whole piece that talks about some of the same protocols that we had prior to this continue to hold true for those situations. So that's important. So that's the piece that's related to the masking. So masking and mask optional. So that's one of several mitigation pieces that we've had in our plans in the past. And so the plan continues, and I think this is so important, because sometimes people think, yes, a lot of the conversation has been around mask, no mask. However, there are many great things that we have been doing in the system that we will continue to do as a system. Hygiene protocols, regular routine cleaning of buildings, ventilation. In fact, the board will see on the next agenda, there's a bid to buy more MERV 13 filters. So we're going to continue with those things as a system. So even though there's no specification about social distancing, we're still going to try to, as much as feasible, have social distancing in spaces. However, with that being said, you'll see later on the chart, that we still want to create dynamic learning environments for kids. And so that's a big part of that piece of it. Testing and availability. We have an abundance of test kits as a school district. I say that because we certainly want parents to know that if they ever have a need for test kits, they can see their school nurses, or quite frankly, stop by the district office. So we continue to do those kind of things. The isolation of sick individuals, consistent with our flow chart, as I said before. Masking is a parental choice and option. And we really, again, want to emphasize the piece that there should be never a situation that a young person or staff member feel as if they're being bullied, harassed, intimidated, otherwise, for a choice that they make to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. Those kind of things. Vaccination access, we continue to work with the county to try to promote pods and clinics for vaccination. So those things kind of highlight our mitigation plan. And so our plan document is different in the sense that it's not based upon high, low, or whatever. It talks about the protocols and how we're engaging those protocols. So again, the board has seen this many times over, and this document is now on the website for individuals who access the board agenda, and again, will be posted in our COVID corner. So COVID testing and vaccination, we're going to continue with those opportunities. Face mask indoors, it's a parental choice and optional for individuals. And I want to emphasize that piece that again, people wearing a mask, the piece that CDC has emphasized all along is to try to wear a mask that fits well. And there's even a link that talks about how to make sure that the mask fits well. And I say that because there are different definitions of, is it a K95 mask? There's a lot of the piece I think CDC comes back with, just wear a mask that fits well first of all, and then you go into the other step of it, because to have a great mask that doesn't fit you well, it defeats the purpose. So those kind of things are important. And again, I want to emphasize the piece here that the respect, we want to ensure that we have our environment, that people are respected for the decision that they make as well. Same thing with the face mask outdoors. We started that this week in terms of the kids not wearing masks outside. The social distancing, again, we want to ensure that our instruction environments are dynamic and that the learning experience are authentic, and certainly I think we're going to see more of that. Small groups and interactive learning opportunities are permissible. We started doing some of that already with the masking, and so having those opportunities. And again, whenever feasible, we want to take advantage of space allocation. So that's built into, quite frankly, how most practices happen right now. And so I say that because, you know, somebody say, well, my child came home and said that he or she was working directly with X, Y, and Z. There is a possibility that children will be working with each other. And so we want to keep those things, be very clear and explicit in terms of when we think about the physical distancing. And again, if the guidance document from DOH comes in and say, thou must do X, Y, Z, we'll make the modifications accordingly. So those would be the stipulation.
You say DOH, is that state or?
So the state DOH will push it down to the local, and so the state will push out the guidance for schools, and that's the one we're going to follow, the state DOH.
We'll
Correct,
go
yes.
to SED.
And they'll reinforce, state education department will reinforce the same thing from the state DOH, correct? Because everybody's working hand in hand in those kind of things. And again, I don't want to shortchange any of this because I think it's important. We're going to continue with the cleaning etiquettes. You'll see in different spaces having wipes and things. We're going to do that because, for one, we have purchased an abundance of them, so we have it. So we certainly want to use it. And two, it's good practice. Or should I say, two is good practice, and one is good practice, and two, we have an abundance of it to use. So we're going to continue those kind of things. Same thing with cleaning and disinfecting. And so one example of this, something that we started doing more aggressively as a result of COVID, for example, buses, the sanitization of buses. Now we have these neat backpacks, it's easy to sanitize buses, and that's going to continue, for example. So people should know that those protocols don't change. Those are safety protocols that regardless of COVID or not, just good safety practices to have in place. Ventilation is, we're going to continue the ventilation protocols that we've had. Contact tracing was shifted over to DOH several weeks ago. So the local, the county, I want to clarify back to Mr. Preston's point, the county DOH determined if or when they're going to contact trace certain cases. Schools are no longer doing the contact tracing that we're doing now. So it's a piece that, and we still collaborate, by the way, with the county for those particular cases. The testing pieces, we're still using testing for diagnostic purposes now. So if somebody's not feeling well, they go to the nurse's office with consent. We still use the test to confirm or not in terms of what might be potentially COVID or not. So those things will continue as well. The protocols in terms of staying home and sick, as I mentioned before, that flow chart, which again, if the state DOH comes out with some specific regulations that changes any components of that, we'll update that flow chart and have that flow chart not only included in this document, but also have that flow chart separately on the COVID corner so people can access that so they can see the progression of actions under those circumstances. Recess, cafeteria, with obviously no masking, it also applies to cafeteria. Certainly we're going to continue the hygiene aspects in the cafeteria as well. And we're part of this too, when you think about it. So tomorrow people say, no mask, and so are we then expect that, oh my God, we're just going to go back and undo everything at once? The answer to that is no. No, we're going to take a very even measured approach as we assess how some of these other practices that may not necessarily be described in our plan, how some of those things play out. And so the cafeteria, for example, particularly at secondary level, we'd add some spaces, even in hallways sometimes, so we're gonna assess and see how those things play out before we make mass changes, even in some of those type of things. And I think it's important for people to know that this is not a rush to wait kind of scenario. This is a measured approach. If we want to see what happened after week 1, after week 2, and then we see how over time things play out. So certain of those things are important. Sports and performing arts are sports going to be consistent with the state and the local regulations now. A lot of them have already made adjustments, and so we're going to see if there's going to be some specific, because if the board recall, there were specific protocols from the state about sports and performing arts. So I want to see if they're going to come out again, specific protocol for state and performing arts, and if those changes, the plan already speaks to, if there are changes in regulations from the state level, the plan speaks to making those modifications accordingly. So if those modifications occur, we need to modify this, certainly we'll modify it, I'll share it back with the board, but there's no need for the board to approve the whole plan because we have in that we'll make the modifications to reflect some of those changes. Mrs. Hoffman.
I have a question. Do you anticipate that the response from the state might be different, especially when we're talking about performing arts at the elementary level because of their vaccination numbers are lower?
No, the reason I say that because that has been a part of conversation with a lot of people from the state. So there are probably a handful of question mark pieces from the state level. One, are you guys going to promulgate separate regulations for extracurricular? That's a big question, and they're like, well, we have to see. And if so, what potential look like, and it's gonna, so the point of right now, I can't say absolute because I haven't seen it, but I can tell you, it's probably unlikely that they're gonna separate K-5, but who knows, right? So we'll see how that falls out as well. The second one was, are they going to continue the same protocols for return to school or work after 5 days, which I already addressed? And the answer to the commissioner, health commissioner, is very adamant, yes. Days 6 through 10, people are going to be required to wear masks if you're COVID positive, and the word was used, ideally, 6 feet apart when the people are eating and things of that nature. So someone's eating, but they could go back with their peers after they're done eating and not have to be 6 feet apart. So that was a big one. The second one that we still have a big answer question about, and something came out this afternoon, it was 20 plus pages, and to be honest with you, there was so much legalese I didn't want to try to interpret it, was the impact on individuals who are unvaccinated and now required to test. So staff members who are unvaccinated, will that continue? That's a big question mark still. And so hopefully that's something that will be addressed. We don't have a lot of staff members because a large majority of our staff members, 90% plus, if not 95% plus, are vaccinated, so we don't have a significant number of those individuals anyway. And so in most cases, those individuals have had COVID, and if you have COVID, you're not tested for 90 days, which is essentially 3 months. And so most of those individuals weren't tested. We had a handful of folks. So for us, that change is not that, as an organization, not that significant. For the person, it's significant. I don't want to discount that. For the individual person, it's significant, but the impact on the organization will be minimal. So for us, those are the big rocks that's kind of still have the question marks on. But our plan is consistent with what we were doing before, so unless they change it significantly, we won't have a lot of changes within the plan itself. And the benefit of myself personally being on all these conversations, that we're having the conversations as they're trying to devise the plan and contributing, trying to influence those conversations as well in terms of what's practical and feasible within schools, or what didn't work so well when the protocols were in place or when the regulations were in place. So those are the things. So that's to be seen. Back to your question. Long answer to your question, but it's an important question to clarify, because I know that's something that people might be contemplating in their minds as well. This is the mitigation document, and if the board just indulge me for a couple more minutes here. So that document translates into the larger, and yes, we're still using the reference reopening plan, because the board adopted in this past September, actually it was August, a school reopening plan. And so we've modified that plan now. This is and if you notice, even the title, we say it's Plan for Spring, because technically the first meteorological day of spring was actually yesterday. So appropriate, when I say spring, I saw the date and I thought, oh, this applies for spring. This is the version. The reason why I say that, because I don't want people to confuse versions of plans. And so the date's very clear to revise 3/1 as effective of to this board meeting. So as you see in the plan, the beginning of this plan document is also very consistent with the mitigation plan document. The reason why that's important, because if someone looks at document A versus document B, they should be getting the same information from the document. So the school opening plan goes to the same thing, and it talks about the 6 factors that we look at before: the hygiene, the social distancing, testing, isolation. And what it does, though, is goes into a little bit more detail in terms of when we start talking about contending with COVID circumstances. That's that flow chart. That the still expectation is that the bottom line is we want nurses to be available to deal with the day-to-day health needs of kids. And on the same note, if someone is sick, COVID or not, stay out of the school environment, because as much as possible. And so if you think about it, the board has always had a policy that deals with infectious diseases. That policy has always existed. And the part of that policy speaks to some of the same things here. So I say that because sometimes people say, is this a new thing for the board? It's not a new thing for the board. COVID has just happened to be another infectious disease that, yes, consumed all our lives. However, it's another infectious disease that the policy speaks to expectation within our schools. And so I think it's an important part for people to connect those two things as well. And so this plan again talks about the flow chart, talks about nurses services, talks about masking as being parental choice and optional for individuals. I highlight the word respect in here because that's an expectation that we're going to certainly talk about often and hold people to respect the decisions of others during this period. Physical social distance, we talk about some of those kind of things in terms of want our classroom experience to be dynamic, hand hygiene, I'm not going to go through all the details, but this document takes some of those same things and just spells them out a little bit more so people have a sense of what do you mean by cleaning and disinfecting. We have a whole protocol that the custodial staff use in terms of cleaning and disinfecting. So this document not only for the public, but it's also for internally for us to have a point of reference to address some of these things as we move through. The filtration and ventilation, there's a whole protocol, internal protocol that we use for those type things. Public use of facilities is going to be consistent with our normal use of facilities, our normal signing in, and whatever the expectation is that we have for anyone within the building. Someone coming to the building should follow those kind of same things. Even safety drills. Remember, we had safety drills with COVID, but they were done slightly different, but they're still done. The notion is that we still want to continue doing our safety drills beyond what we have done in the past. Teaching and learning talks about the teaching and learning pieces, and yes, students who are currently in the CVL, the K-6 students who are currently in CVL, those students will continue in CVL for the remaining year. That's their school year as well. So we address those kind of things in this plan as well. Extracurricular activities, as I said, going to be consistent with New York State Public High School Association piece. The piece that was modified or beefed up, if you will, in this piece was the social, emotional, and well-being piece. Particularly, we have had a lot of focus on student social, emotional piece of it. This adds some components for our adults. And so what I mean by that, we have a great partnership with, because that's our primary insurance, health insurance company, with Capital District CDPHP, and they have literally down the street on Route 9, they have a one-stop center that focuses on mental health and wellness. And so we have a link to that. So for employees and most all of our employees who have health insurance, they're eligible to take advantage of those type opportunities. We have a link to the Saratoga County. Saratoga County has some pretty extensive resource on their website when it comes to adult mental health and wellness support. So we have that, and we also have a link to Saratoga Center for the Family. Saratoga Center for the Family not only provides services for us, we contract them. They have employees on site, and this has been going on for probably 6-8 years now, so this is a long time, and we have beefed up those relationships over the past year, and certainly as we go through the budget cycle, continue to look at that to make sure that, again, we are meeting the needs of our students, but also providing that as an access for families to access in case they need those supports outside of the school environment. So that's the one piece. There was an addition piece that was different from our original plan, was this piece that really talks about the mental health supports for both adults and children. Child nutrition pieces will continue. Transportation, as I said, some of the same protocols. We're still going to be doing seating charts on buses, taking attendance. But those they came out to be good practices, because now if something happened on the bus, it's easy to identify who's where, not where, or those kind of things. So we're going to continue with those protocols for the foreseeable future for the school year. So we're going to continue those kind of things. The personnel pieces hasn't changed. And and also we have here that in case we have a situation and we have to pivot to all remote, we have a plan. We have done that in the past, and this reflects that if we have a situation like that, we still have a plan that we can effectively do so. So again, I share that with you. And these are all the changes over the life of this plan, with the last one being highlighted tonight. We're revamping the plan to reflect the change to the mask mandate. So those two documents are what's been presented to the board in this resolution, and the board will be asked to essentially approve those two modified plan documents as we move forward. So I'm going to stop there, and if there are specific questions that you have as a board member, be more than happy to address them as much as I possibly can.
So I got a bucket.
Sure.
So let's get through them. So we talk about, you went through the plan, and we talk about what, at the end, you talked about what we would do if we had to pivot to a remote. I know we have in here too, that if we we have the ability to change. If things went south, we have triggers. I call them trigger points.
Correct.
Based on the metrics that we have today, this is what we would use. We do have the ability to change the plan if things went south. Okay, so I want everybody to understand that. Dr. Robinson, I'm sure you agree. You know, if things happened according to the state, SED, when I say the state, DOH, SED, localities, county, Saratoga, we would do that.
Yeah, so I just literally, and I know Lindsay's following this for the public to see, but the public won't see the highlighted here, but they'll see the version of the document. In the plan document, I highlighted that the district will collaborate with Saratoga County Public Health, act according in case of shifting transmission rates to determine if or when a point of pivot is warranted. So I think that's an important point to make, and so that's the reason why the references were made to, one, the COVID dashboard piece of it, and two, this piece of it. And so here's an interesting fact. I just want to see if I have my notes here. So as of today, across New York State, there are still 11 counties that are not in the green. What I mean by low, that's are either in medium or high. And those 11 counties are larger in the Finger Lakes, the Southern Tier, Central New York, and North Country regions. And so I say that because those counties are probably having a different conversation in school boards than we're having right now. I say probably because I don't know what they're actually doing. Because the local counties still can make a determination if they're going to uphold, because these are recommendations from CDC. So I think people need to know that. The transmission piece is a recommendation from CDC. If a county decides to say, you know what, yeah, I hear the recommendation, but as a county health department, we're going to choose to do one way or the other, that's the big question that a lot of people are saying. How much authority the county have based upon all the meetings I've been in? The counties have that authority to effectively do so. So I say that because, you know, when the mask mandate came out, yes, the state of New York is no longer saying we require it. However, it's lobbied down, if you will, to counties to look at this and using the CDC as a consistent matrix across the county, in fact, across the country for that matter. So that's why the piece, Mrs. Stevens, back to your question, we put that specific thing in our plan, so someone can say after the fact that no one said A, B, C, D, and we didn't know. It's clearly as a part of our plan.
Okay.
Deanna, can I just add?
Yeah.
But when you talk about pivoting, it's not just closing the doors. It could be going
Correct.
back.
So why
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes,
Yeah.
correct,
Yeah,
correct.
hopefully we won't have to go.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
But I think everybody needs to understand, because I know there are a lot of worried people out there,
Absolutely.
that this is it, this is the only thing we're doing, and there's no trigger point backwards or a slide or whatever.
Right.
So,
Okay.
you went through the chart at the bottom, I think that was important too. The sixth day on, so that was important that stayed. And you're going to give us more information if you hear anything different from DOH.
Correct.
Okay, so teachers' reactions. So I think, and I'm sure, teachers are excited. They're probably in the mindset too that they know what's in front of them, that you're going to have some children that have anxiety, that are happy. They're going to have it's going to ride the whole spectrum, I'm sure. I'm sure, and I know Dr. Wood has been working on this, I know you have been working on that, your administrators that talking with the teachers. I'm sure Heidi's been doing this as well. And I'm sure they have their own anxieties and excitement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a conversation point, yes?
Yes, and you know, so you're right. I mean, one of the things that we have to remember, yes, people have their professional obligation, but they're also parents, they're also loved ones, they're also all these other things. And all those dimensions of people come to work with them, right? And so that's the reason why I noted in the plan the social emotional piece of it, to make sure people know that there's a support system for them as employees. That's on one side of it. The second piece of it that we had an all-admin call on Monday morning, I think it's 9 o'clock, whatever, to emphasize the point that principals talking to teachers or supervisors talking to their staff members about how do we try to make sure we're supporting kids in those situations. and or avoiding the inadvertent, like, oh my God, I just said something that made a young person feel bad about whatever choice they make and or their parents make for them. So that was a very good piece of it. And I haven't seen the video yet. However, parents literally came in like right when I was leaving. A parent shared with me a video that one of our teachers made that she thought was so cute about talking to their kids about tomorrow. So I say that because teachers are doing those things. They're communicating with their families, especially families of younger kids, to try to say, okay, here's what tomorrow looks like, feels like as well. So it's an ongoing conversation, and I think it's so important, your question, Mrs. Stevenson, because people have a tendency to think that things are absolute. Yes or no, one and done. This whole process has been evolving all along, and we will continue to take, I use that word all the time, a measured approach. So in other words, we are assessing as we're moving. We are assessing as we're moving, and our actions are based upon what's actually happening in the environment, and with a singular focus. Keeping our kids in school, providing quality opportunities for them to be successful. So that's the objective. That objective doesn't change. It's as we move from day to day, week to week, how do we better and best realize that objective? And so your question is, and yes, I'm sure that the reaction that people have on day 1 tomorrow is going to be different than day 10, different from day 100. We've seen the evolution. And so we expect that we're going to see a similar evolution as well. And so we're not going into day 1 is the same thing as day 100. There's no expectation, but that's an unreasonable expectation. We're going in that we want to take a very measured approach and see and allow things to evolve organically. And when we have to intervene to ensure that we're going in the right direction, we make those adjustments accordingly.
You mentioned the lunchroom, and I appreciate you bringing that up. It's not that you're going to open the floodgates. So a Chango lunchroom is going to be different than an Oranjan lunchroom, is going to be different than a Coda lunchroom, is going to be different than a Renda and every other school that we have. You had mentioned that you're not, everybody's just not, it's festival seating and everybody's running through the doors and on top of each other and sitting. It's going to be very measured. Yes, and school buildings, or how are you?
Yeah, so what? I mean, there's so many great lessons in the midst of this awful crisis. There have been so many great lessons we have learned, and the management of students is one of those lessons that we have learned. And I give the middle school as a perfect example in terms of lunches and different ways people have come up with different seating schemes or mechanisms. So that the whole lunch period is much more manageable, and quite frankly, the experience is a better experience for kids. And so for us to say we're going to stop doing those things that's more manageable and better for experience for kids, that's counterproductive, right? So the answer to that question, because you're right, every situation will be different, but it's still focused on the same objective: try to create a quality experience for kids. So if this open more opportunities to do so, we'll take advantage of those opportunities. So the objective is not to have a less positive or quality experience for kids. If anything else, it's to use this opportunity to have a better experience for kids. And so yes, you're absolutely, I'm glad you pointed out, because sometimes people have a tendency, my kids or my neighbor kids' school, this and this, why is it different? Because every schools have different flavors, different needs, different circumstances, and all those things are taken into consideration to try to make the best of whatever that situation is. Yes, do we try to have some standardization of certain practices across? Absolutely. We try to have consistency in certain practices, but it's not an absolute cookie cutter. And I think that's an important point to make as well.
One more major, and I'll let everybody else have a discussion too. Exposure notices. I don't know, is that rolled into the, if we find that somebody is COVID positive, we talked about this before, I don't know, like a lice or a strep issue or anything like that. Is that evolving? Is that something that we would look at?
So if the board recall, we transitioned away from sending the daily email that flooded everybody's inbox, quite frankly, to posting on the COVID corner what's the impacts or the transmission by building for a particular period of time. So two things. One, we still are reporting and more than likely will continue to report when there are when cases that, as a school, we find out, as well as the self-reporting portal is still out there as well. So that reporting piece, I don't think is going to go away. In fact, the health commissioner alluded to that. But again, I want to see what actual guidance document states. So that guidance document will also then address probably the second half of your question in terms of what's the expectation for schools to report to families. So remember, in the height of COVID cases, if we would have been trying to send home the quote-unquote whooping cough letter every time to every parent, it would be absolutely inundating people with correspondences. And that's why the website piece became a more manageable piece of the situation. With a significantly less number of COVID cases, is something like that more manageable? We have to assess that. For me to sit here now and say we're going to do that, quite frankly, is putting our staff in this predicament. They're like, well, we can't know that yet. So that's something we want to assess, because at the end of the day, same way we, back to the board policy, and the board policy about communicable diseases talks about there's a communication piece in that policy. So we're going to revisit that policy from specifically on this communication piece and see how that aligns with whatever the new guidance may or may not say, to ensure, one, we're consistent with policy. That's one piece of, and two, that we're being transparent with families in terms of potential impact. Because I know that's one of the things that people want to know. If somebody was positive in my class, how do I know? How do I need to look out for symptoms? And so the short answer to your question, there will be some type of communication. Specifically how this is going to look, that's to be determined at this point. But there will be communication related to those things.
What about lockers for middle school?
Be honest with you, I haven't got that far as unpacking lockers. So I say that because, so I appreciate your question, Mrs. Miller, because, so there's the safety pieces, and quite frankly with you, that's been my primary concern, making sure they have a comprehensive safety plan. And then there are what I call the management pieces, right? And so I said I want to clarify that, because sometimes I use the word managing students, some people thinking that it sounds awful. It's not about managing the body of students. It's about the structures that we have in place so students can do certain things, such as you just mentioned, locker, such as where they eat, those kind of things. And so those are things that I think we'll unpack as we see how this plays out. And again, as things evolve, try to take advantage of opportunities as much as we possibly can. So those, that's on the list, I'm sure, of many things that principals have. Like, when do we go back to this? And I'll give you a perfect example of one that came up right away, was for elementary schools. So particular grades, I'm looking at Dr. Woods, grades 1 through 2, they use these kidney-shaped tables, right? And so because when we were trying to create space in classrooms, we took out a lot of those kidney tables. And so I jokingly said on the meet to administrators, it's not going to be a rush to put kidney tables back in classrooms. We're going to have to see how things play out, because putting a kidney table back in the classroom minimizes space and separation in that situation. So will there be a classroom, because of configuration, number of students, that we may be able to do some different configuration furniture? Yes. And what we don't want is, what Mrs. Stevens alluded to, somebody said, how come that building and that classroom did that and this building not class? Because the circumstances were different. And so that's a clear understanding by everyone that we really will be monitoring things and see how things unfold before we rush to, because this whole notion of normalcy. Well, what was normal? That's a big question. And just because we did in the past, was it the most effective way of doing it moving forward? So that's how we assess how we do certain things that we have done before. But I use it for example because I know there was a common one that's going to come up, not only from parents but also from teachers. And I respect why they want it, because those tables create a different environment for kids in small groups. And so we assess those type things as we move forward. Same way we assess when we change the configuration of furniture in classes prior to where we are today.
I have a question about the mask optional piece for those who are COVID positive or have symptoms. So in that scenario, if you know that they're positive and they're coming back after, the 6 to 10 day window, it sounds like that they're required then, it's not optional, so they go home if they don't.
So, yeah,
Is that the plan? Okay.
So, and again, and I want to preface all of this, as I sit here at 7:15, when I looked at my email at the start of this board meeting at 6:27, there was no guidance posted by the New York State Department of Health. And based upon a conversation, and I don't want people to hold the health commissioner based upon a conversation. She was talking about some of the things that people are most concerned about, and this is one of them. And the common sentiment, and I use the word common sentiment versus a directive, was days 6 through 10, people will be required to wear a mask, assuming then up to day 5 you stop showing symptoms, right?
Mhm.
And so that's the common sentiment. And our plan right now, the flow chart in our plan, and even there's a statement in the plan that clearly states that the reason why I pulled that out separately and highlighted that piece in our plan was because I know that was a big issue, or should I say, a point of focus prior to today. So when we did our flow chart, the flow chart is actually only revolves around that same thing: return to work or school after 5 days. And so we want to emphasize that point. And so I'm sure that once the guidelines come out from the state, we have a call every Friday. School districts in Saratoga County, and I venture all counties have a similar configuration, that we'll be talking to the county to say, with the new guidance, how does that translate to specific actions the county will be taking and subsequent actions that we'll be taking as a school district. I don't anticipate they're going to be significantly different from the actions that we've taken in the past. But until those things are absolutely concrete, I can't give an absolute concrete other than our plan will continue that format until we're told otherwise.
Okay. And then I do want to revisit the elementary level just for a bit, and that is, so the numbers are higher for vaccinated children 5 to 11 here as compared to the state.
Mhm.
It's like 50% for 1 dose and I think 48 for 2 doses. It's pretty high. But we don't know what it is in the various schools, and I mean, I'm sure it
Sure.
fluctuates. And so, so what you're saying is that, the guidance hasn't changed when we talk about things like performing arts and things like that. But what I know some are concerned about is potential outbreaks, and then where I'm going with this is to share out guidance or to have use practices to avoid that until we get to safer numbers. And I think you know what example I'm thinking of without actually citing it. But there is an opportunity here to keep us on this path and not go backwards. And so I'm hoping that best practices or things that are shared that have been learned recently, especially for things like performing arts, so that our children don't miss out on these opportunities, so that we can keep them in place. But I think to go, let's say maskless, depending on the event, could send us backwards until we get to those higher numbers where outbreaks are less likely. I mean, when you look at Saratoga County, you're right, the number's above 90%. It's less likely of an outbreak when you're looking at those large percentages, but when you're looking at a population where it's 50%, it's likely for, there's risk there that could happen.
And I agree with your point, and I think I just only comment I can say, I understand the point, and I think we also then have to see if there are any specific distinction in the guidance between K-5 versus say 6-12. But I do understand the point. So we'll unpack that once we get more information and as warranted. So I do understand the point what you're making.
Right, and
as well.
you're right. There isn't something addressing those situations, but because we have some examples, we've learned something, right, as of late, and to share that out with all the other schools so that to minimize reoccurrence.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Thank you.
We don't know the total vaccination rates of the kids, do we? In
Um,
our total school.
Well, see, so the county has it brought it by zip codes, and so when we look at it by, and I think that the stat that is kind of sticky. In fact, they have something that age. The one I looked at, because I want to see the whole gamut. 5-year-old and older was high 80s, 90%. And even when you brought it to take out the 5-year-old out of it, and then you put the 12 and older, it was still in the high percentage. So back to Mrs. Hoffman's point, and again, I can only say this county, not necessarily even this region, because I didn't look at other counties, is notably higher than even the statewide or the nationwide average, particularly for
It is higher than the state.
for vaccination rates for young people. So I don't have that because
I think you did.
I know the
Yeah.
county, they track it by zip code. And even if you go to the county COVID data site, you can see some of that breakout by vaccination rates in the town, as well as you can break it down by the age group piece as well. So that's also linked.
Yeah, New York
to our
State has a
document.
really good
Yeah, they
chart.
break it all up.
And
Yeah.
it'll show that cohort. That's the reason why I'm saying 50, because if you just remove that cohort,
Yeah.
it's a different number.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Jason?
Yeah, just a few comments, not really a question. I think the plan and the presentation was really clear. I think it's helpful, I mean, for me and for others, I think to talk about just some of the thinking in the process, and I thought I might just share a little bit, like we did actually at the beginning of the year, about why I'm comfortable with the plan and why I think this makes sense. I think it's important, one, and somebody brought this up earlier, I think it's good to just think about and remember what we're all trying to do here, and the purpose with this plan, past plans, prior plans, is trying to keep the doors open, the kids in school, and everyone is safe as possible, so that we keep doing that. I think we should recognize and commend this board before I was even on it, and leadership for the work done to date. I mean, Shen among the region has been open the whole time. A lot of other schools have had to close for a number of reasons, outbreaks, staffing shortages, buses, and we haven't. And I think that's a testament to the thinking around this table, the policies we've put in place, and how we've run things. I think it's also important to recognize too, we all have or had kids in the district. We send our kids to these schools, and it's not just us as a board making decisions, but it's what we have to do for ourselves and send our kids in. And one of the challenges I think we all face, and it happens everywhere, is it's especially just in the culture we are right now, and social media and things, is the assumption of ill intent. It's very easy to just always assume the other person is doing something for the wrong reasons. No one here is doing anything for the wrong reasons, right? Again, we're all sending our children here, and we're all just trying to do the best job we possibly can to keep everybody safe and keep the doors open. I know we spoke, it was a few meetings ago, starting to talk about the off-ramp, right? We knew kind of things were gonna head in this direction. I mean, look, that was the hope from the start, right? We had very strong practices, and step by step, we've been able to peel some away. So we talked about an off-ramp. I don't think any of us expected that New York State and the CDC would beat the timelines that they had put out by a week or two, putting out their guidance. And I don't know why they always change the rules while we're on break, as I'm sure. They just want to keep you on your toes, I guess, right? But they did. So I know we talked about an off-ramp, but all of this guidance came out in advance. So we're having this meeting now that was not scheduled to try and keep up and get ahead of that. So I think it's important people recognize that too, because I think we would have all liked to have a longer runway if possible, but these are the circumstances we're dealing with. The other thing I just wanted to say too is, we have come a long way since the start of the pandemic and since the start of the school year and the mitigation plan we adopted back then. At the start of the year, it was the first time we were having everybody back in school. We didn't have that last year. It was the first time we were having, we just introduced vaccinations for 12 and up. We didn't have vaccinations even available yet for 5 and up. So that was a dramatic change. We just talked about the vaccination rates, much higher. And so if you look at the availability and access of vaccination to those who want it, Omicron changed things a lot from an exposure standpoint, from a spread standpoint. It changes, frankly, as we saw with the CDC, how we can even track rates, how we track exposures and what the risk levels are. Contact tracing has dramatically changed since the start, as far as different tools we relied on for how we do this. And also, masks are no longer required anywhere else. School's the last place, right? So you have to recognize too, we have masking requirements in school right now. Everywhere else, everybody goes, including the children, there are no masking requirements anymore. So there's a lot of changing factors. So I bring those all up because I think it's important to see we're not where we were in August or September, we're not where we were in spring 2020. Things have changed, we have more tools, things have, I think, gotten better, and it's appropriate for us to acknowledge that and change some of our behaviors, I think, in response to that. And, you know, I do think it's very fortuitous also, New York State and CDC putting out this information. I think we've also, all around this table, been very careful about following guidance, following the science, however you want to phrase that. That's what's out there, right? I mean, this is what our health experts are telling us. It's important that we acknowledge that as a significant change, right? I mean, if CDC didn't come out, we might have had, and New York was changing, we might have had a different conversation of trying to figure out how to balance competing guidance, right? But universally, we've got this information coming out. So again, I just say all of that because I think it's important to pause and step back and think through all of those steps, what has changed, why things are different than they were, why it's safe, I think, to take some of these steps. There's still so much we're doing from protecting the students, a part of the mitigation plan that we were not doing before the pandemic, whether it's air filtration, cleaning, some of the other spacing things that are going on. So again, it's just peeling another layer off the plan. Same thing we did at the start of this year. We said we're going to take a couple things off, we're going to bring kids back in and reduce some of the distancing one step at a time. So I wanted to say all that just so people can understand kind of my thinking, why I feel good about this. I've got a daughter, 2 daughters, one in Orendo, one in Gowana. I will send them tomorrow to school confidently that they're going to be safe, that they're going to learn, that they're going to be with their friends, meet with their teachers. So again, I just wanted to share that. So and want to also thank just leadership here and, you know, all the work that went into this plan. There was a lot of work and effort, again, the curveball of having it happen over break doesn't help anybody, but appreciate that and all the efforts to date. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Anybody else?
Well, I feel like I have
Stacy.
to, oh, so go ahead.
Well, I just want to agree, I second everything Jason said. I think it's important to acknowledge everything that's changed and how far we've come and why we feel confident as a board putting forth these changes. And then also to just quickly kind of address the social and emotional aspect of it that I don't think we've talked so much about it. I know a lot of the kids are excited about taking off their mask and then also concerned about what will people think if they do or don't. So I think it's really important that we emphasize the decision is theirs to make. Nobody is to comment on it either way. Teachers have to kind of put that forward and then also like explain to the kids the reason that we feel comfortable making the mask optional is that the experts are now saying that it's safe. Because I think the kids have been taught that if they don't wear their mask, they're putting other people in danger. So I think we need to take that fear away from them.
Stacy?
No, I was just going to add to what the both of them are saying, and I think that we have to recognize the hard work that Dr. Robinson and his administrators have been doing the last couple of weeks. And I know that the breaks shift because I shared that with somebody else, and they had said, oh, our break was a different week. But it doesn't matter. It's still that time of the year. It's also right in the middle of winter where, you know, we're all indoors and people were not expecting this. But thank you for staying ahead of these changes. This is very difficult. They've been coming fast and furious. I do anticipate that this will continue to change because it is an off-ramp, right? As you pointed out, this won't stay the same forever. We're getting there slowly, but our priority is the education of our students, getting them there safely. The realities, we're not out of the woods. It's, you know, everything that you've shared here, the data that we're seeing shows that, but we're getting there. And the plan shows how we're moving forward, and that's what's really important, to give us a plan so that everybody, you know, this is a big district, and the impact on this community is big, it's meaningful, and, you know, a thoughtful approach, I think, has been taken. It has been seen in everything that was shared tonight. So I know that some are still concerned about the changing in the masking requirement, but I feel that a lot of time and energy has gone into what was shared tonight. The emphasis being that we take COVID seriously, we are listening, and we're not taking the quick, easy exit. We're doing what's in the best interest of our staff and students and community. So thank you for that.
So, as I promised, I do have 3 letters that I do want to read, only because I think it, let's get it out on the open. We didn't respond to them, because I wanted to wait. So I know people are, I respond to everything, and I give my phone number to everybody, so I thought this would be easier. So the first one that came was a few days ago. It was Dr. Rebecca and Michelle Mosteller. Dr. Robinson, Board of Education, what changes are being made to make sure our child is safe while attending school in person, with masks being optional? Our child has a right to feel safe at school, and at this moment he does not feel safe with the mask protocol being lifted, even with him wearing a mask. Are the students going to be socially distanced further apart since there will be no mask? We are sure you have thought of a plan to protect those students and their families, and deserve to be. We educators always tell our students to be proactive, and we feel that you all have failed with this, as we have heard absolutely nothing about protecting the vulnerable and masked students. All we have heard about is the repetitiveness of unmasking the kids, as it is their right. In fact, there was no questionnaire asking how many students and staff would still like masking left in place. This may have given you data that there are many students and staff that would like to wear masks. With Shen being such a large school district, classes could have been shifted to protect those students and staff that would like to remain masked. This was not done. Why? So we're wondering what you are doing to protect our family. We sent our son to school as we were told the tiered mitigation plan would be followed this year. The last 7 days, Saratoga had over 300 COVID cases, and based on that mitigation plan, students and staff would still be masked. So once again, what are you doing for our son to attend school safely? So first of all, I appreciate this, but we're looking at 9,400 students. On top of the one student that we absolutely need to take care of. I understand that. I think we went through tonight what we're doing. I think what you have to, if you feel that way, you're going to mask. You want to mask, you have to mask. It's optional to mask. Am I missing anything here? Is there anything in here that you want to comment on?
No, I think that's the proverbial challenge that we always have with any decision. And sometimes when you say that, people think that you're being callous and dismissing one side. It's not one side versus the other side. And that's why it's not a binary piece. It's objectively how we doing those kind of things. And I think both Jason and Stacy's point are important points in terms of people having the option to wear masks and being comfortable doing so. And all the other protocols that we've taken in place, and taking into consideration where we are with the infection rates and all those vaccination rates. All those are factors that we have to take in consideration. And so yes, and finally, yes, every parent should have whatever their consternation or their concerns are. And we also look at various options that people exercise, even prior to this. People exercise to homeschool their kids. People exercise because of medically situation. We have some families that are now doing virtual. And it's hard to answer that question without someone saying, if you don't give me the answer I want, then you're in disagreement with me. To me, it's never agreement versus disagreement. It's about collectively what we're trying to do as a system to balance the provision of education with the safety, the health safety, and the mental health safety of students and staff. And that's our objective. And if it was a single answer, we wouldn't be here.
Deanna, so I have a question. With that one that just came in, was that after, is it?
This is the first one that came in about 2 days ago.
So, I mean, what's hard to know is, would that person still respond the same way, having seen where we are with the plan?
I will reach out to all 3 of these and say that I read your letter at the meeting tonight. Please listen, or do you have any further comment? And here's my phone number. So that's the way I will deal with it. To see if maybe they have changed, I don't know. I'd be more than happy to do that. Okay, second one is from Terry Hudson. My name is Terry Hudson. I am the proud parent of 2 amazing Chango students and another who will be there in a few years. I have been outspoken supporter of masking in schools. You haven't seen me at meetings because I have kids to raise and things to do. Unlike a lot of folks on the opposite side, they only wanted to yell. I am a business development manager for a large conglomerate, and I work for the medical components division. I have been very busy the last few years, helping OEMs make ventilators, adding filters to products that never had them, and keeping IVD manufacturers afloat as they make regions for testing, and literally every pharma OEM making vaccines for COVID. I like to think that I understand market trends and needs, as I am literally talking to the largest OEMs in the world. I say this to add a little credibility to my statements. I'm not a doctor, but an engineer, so my schooling based around scientific. I've been sick exactly one time since the pandemic started, and it was after the first time we relaxed mask requirements in stores. I still wear my mask in public places. No one in my family has gotten COVID. I understand this is an anecdote in the sea of data that has formed throughout the pandemic, where we are a family who has continued to mask and most likely avoided indoor restaurants and places where we would be indoors for a long time. Knowing that I know about filters, how they work, and how masks are just face filters for our breath, along with the overwhelmingly evidence that masks do work, I support them. I also support taking them off when the time is right, and that seems to be now. Okay, I'm okay with the mask coming off. What I'm not okay with is the total disillusion of real protection our kids have, including my 3-year-old who can't be vaxxed, which is my greatest concern. Did you know 2,000 people died of COVID yesterday? Sure, hospital visits and cases are dropping. This has happened before, however. And yes, I read the new plan. It's basically dissolution. This is no real contact tracing or quarantine plan anymore. We won't get notified if our children was in close contact, which means spread will continue. Our kids will inevitably get sick, and that includes my unvaxxed child at home, and that's literally nothing I can do about it. At the time, I was not in favor of the original mitigation plan, but with this new plan, I feel as if we should stick to the original. It will keep us more prepared for situations should they change, and it will keep family members immunocompromised and too young to be vax safe. At the very least, notification should continue so we can monitor our kids. Allergy season is coming. Symptoms will be discarded for that. Please reconsider.
Can I make a comment about allergies? I think that it actually helps to wear a mask if you have allergies anyway. It really does, because I'm one with allergies, and it was a really nice season because I wasn't breathing in. But it is true, if someone comes to school with those symptoms, you don't know if they have a cold or not, unless they test, right? So I think it is good. It's a good practice to wear a mask if you have allergies. But that's just my 2 cents.
Thoughts?
No, I think the plan speaks to a lot of the concerns that were expressed in the correspondence. I'm happy to try to follow the correspondences too, in case people wonder why I'm looking down.
Okay. That was okay. Last one, unless Lindsay tells me I got more coming. This is for Melissa McHugh Monini, hyphen name. I am a parent of twin 5th graders at Chango and twin 8th graders at Galana. I'm writing with just concerns, questions, the new COVID-related policies that go into effect tomorrow. Let me just say that I'm someone who is sort of ready for masks to become optional in school. With that being said, there are some issues that continue to concern me. For example, my 5th graders came home yesterday saying a staff member indicated that students would be returning to pre-COVID lunch practices in the cafeteria, which we talked about tonight. I personally would be more comfortable with distancing while everyone is eating. Kids don't always have the best hygiene and manners while eating, which I believe will just increase the likelihood of people sharing germs, etc. Secondly, I'm wondering what the plan will be if the classmate becomes positive. Will classmates be notified? I think we talked about that tonight as well. Continue to attend school maskless until they are perhaps symptomatic. Finally, I'm wondering if any of the distancing practices in general, for example, desks kept at 3 feet, will be maintained, especially given that most people will likely be maskless. Thanks for consideration and your continued efforts on behalf of our students. I think we addressed most of these tonight. If not, again, I will reach out to the 3 parents and give them my number if they want to further talk. Okay. Lindsay, do we have anything else?
We have one, but it's been clarified from Aaron Zimmer, said, could you please clarify there is no social distancing in schools anymore?
We just did not.
Yep. Yep. What, do we have to answer it again?
No.
Okay.
Can I just share 2 quick things?
Yeah.
So finally, the state released the guidance, and so it's a 20-page document. So I'm only on page like 5. But what I was looking for to, yes, as we said, day 6 to 10, mask will be required on day 6 to 10. That's one thing they clarify very clearly in their document. And I didn't say it on here when I did my presentation, that not only are masks not required in school, but not required on buses as well. And the state also, again, reinforced that in this document, mask is no longer required on school buses. And the reason why that was an interesting distinction, because the Federal Transportation Authority was initially dictating masking on buses. And now, because of the CDC also came out as a part of their recommendation for public schools, I don't know like public authority, like CDTA, what they're gonna do, but I'm only concerned about schools. So that was a good clarification point. So the reason why I'm bringing it, because those are two of the questions that I still had in my to be answered list. And so now we have this document, I'll unpack, and I really don't anticipate that what's presented on here is gonna be substantially changed. If anything, might be some clarification or some links to other documents. So from the board approval standpoint, and again, I want to emphasize, we have in the plan that we'll make the adjustments, and in fact, the resolution, as it's basically saying, as superintendent board is giving me to make those adjustments to our plan accordingly, and certainly keep the board informed. And that's why it's on the last page. We kept dates of when we made adjustments so people could see whatever modifications were as the plan evolved. So thank you for that. I'm assuming if there's, I just want to back to, Mr. Stevens, I want to thank you personally. All board members are great, but I got to tell you, so this is my 17th year here at Shannon as superintendent. And for some people it's good news, some people it's bad news, who knows, right? But I say that, and this is also my 21st year as superintendent of schools. And I'm not saying this because Deanna's sitting here. Deanna was built for times like these. For a time when there was so many uncertainty, time when we had gaping ideological differences. She was always willing to stand in the middle of them and say, talk to me. And I think when you think about why, I think as a school district, we got through the last 20 months or so, it's quite frankly because you stepped in, at times myself personally, I'm thinking, I just can't take this anymore. She's like, nope, I'll reach out to him. So then I want to say thank you as board president, because I think people in the public, if they like you for one issue or they dislike you for one issue, and they forget the whole body of work. We have been open as a school district through this pandemic. When many places closed, even last week places were closing for a variety of, we have been open, and I'm going to give credit to you, Deanna, as board president, and the support you have from your colleagues, but you as an individual, because I know things and times and places that you have intervened that people around this table don't know, but you did it on behalf of the kids in the school community. And I think people need to know that, understand it, and appreciate that, because I'm not sure if anyone else was built for times like these. And so I want to say thank you. I really sincerely want to say thank you, because you made my job, as challenging as it is, excuse my French, a hell of a lot easier, because you were also willing to join hands, and we made that statement, partners in progress. Join hands in the middle of the arena when we had polarized perspectives. So I want to say thank you, Deanna, for that. And I hope for the people to really appreciate that, because you all volunteer your time. And you volunteer your time in probably the most challenging time in the history of schools to be at this table, to show up every board meeting, to listen to every comment, to respond to every email. So kudos to you as a board to be here in these most challenging times, and our kids are the beneficiary of all your work. So thank you all for that as well.
That's very kind, thank you very much, but of course, I can do it without my colleagues and, a lot of bouncing back and forth. I've been very fortunate, and we all think differently, but I tell you, when we come together, it's a great synergy. So I appreciate each and every one of you. And finally, my remark tonight is that I'm watching, and I said, I've always done social media for fun, and I just hope everybody can heal, because even today I'm watching people just go at each other, and it makes me sick. I gotta tell you, I start looking at this stuff at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, how can you just keep going like this? So I hope going forward, I know there's going to be bumps. I'm not saying there's not. We are not perfect at all. We are just like everybody else. We are parents, we are friends, we are peers, we are professionals, we are a lot, just like everybody else. So I'm just asking for everybody, just take a step back. Just be aware of what you're saying. The kids are watching this. Just please, and I know everybody wants to keep their kids safe. I do too. I don't want my kids sick. None of us do. But we have to take this step forward. We may stumble. We've stumbled, but we've always made it through. This district has done tremendous. And I am optimistic that we will keep the same path. So please, I hope you join me. If you disagree with me, I'm sorry. But I personally, and I tell you, I have everybody's best interest at stake here. And I know that. I know that, and I don't take it lightly. Thank you. So with that, let's take a vote on this.
Public comments.
Oh, my
I think
God, I'm
there's-
so sorry. This is a
There
public
was
meeting.
one lady who was, I don't know if she was here for public comments or not. I'm looking at you front row.
Oh, I never, you want me to read it? You want me to read it?
Yeah.
I did, I missed them, I have to, well,
No, if you want to come, can you come forward?
sure. Sorry, I missed it.
No.
I didn't read the whole thing,
No,
but
you
that's
didn't,
all
you're not
right. You're
missing,
fine.
no.
Okay.
Take this the microphone, you can just go like that, thank you.
You
So
can tell
sorry.
it's my first time.
Yeah.
Thanks for waiting the whole thing.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving parents the choice about their kids' health. And I know that these changes make some parents feel like they don't have a choice. But there are other parents where I have a little boy, I don't talk negatively about masks, he doesn't talk negatively about masks, but there were months where he every single morning asked me with tear-filled eyes, can I please not go to school? And he wasn't getting bullied, he had a great teacher, and I honestly think that it's just having a mask in your face all day long. And there's more to this than physical health, which these blessed kids, vaccinated or not, are at an extremely low risk for with COVID. And I'm just so grateful that your hands aren't tied and that you're giving us the option now. Because I think it's going to make all the difference in the world to my first grader, who has had so many tear-filled mornings, where he asks me, why do I have to go to school? And I don't even know what to tell him. But I'm grateful he's had school. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful that we changed our, what is the word? The plan.
Yeah,
Because- Yes, because we've learned so much about COVID. There's been different variants. We know how kids handle COVID. The old plan isn't still applicable because of all we've learned. We know there's early treatment. We know kids are just at an extremely low risk. And that's not every kid. Some kids are immunocompromised. But those sweet children are also going to have problems with the flu and with other sicknesses. I just want to say thank you. I'm so grateful for what you do, and it means the world to my family that you're letting my kid go just breathe and run at recess without having to have a soaked mask every day. Because it's been hard, and he hasn't complained about it, but I know it's been hard. So thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to come up? Leslie, is there anybody else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Now, you take a vote on the plan. Bob is first, Bob is second. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Motion passes. And motion passes, yes, motion passes. And now can I get a,
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to
we're not
adjourn.
gonna do good for the order, we've been talking a long time. So, motion to adjourn. I'm so giddy tonight. Liam is first, Bob is second, all in favor. Motion passes.